So I thought we'd do my front yard today. My neighbors can all peep through their window curtains and say, "Oh, we knew it, she's really crazy." So let's give them something to talk about. This is from my porch. We'll scan out to the street. My house has two sidewalks coming up to the front of the house. There's one to the left there that's just a flat, we call it ramp. And to the right, there's steps up from the sidewalk. My front yard has a slight slope to it. Well, no, actually, there's more than a slight slope once you get down to the sidewalk. But anyway, so one of the first things we did when we moved in was dug up the weedy grass in between the two sidewalks and planted it with mostly native plants. There were some failures, and now it's filled in after so many years, and things from other parts of the garden are showing up in here. Lots of grasses. The grass is a little blue stem, and this was one of the first plants we planted. It's a Veronica. There were three. There's one left, so it's barely hanging in there. This is pasque flower. It has beautiful purple flowers, spring blooming. You can see the remains of the puffy seed heads looking sad and bedraggled. This is New England aster, which has migrated to this flower bed from another flower bed up by the foundation of the house. I used to wonder how these plants moved around, and then I realized one winter, oh, it's my fault, as I'm shoveling snow and realizing, oh, I'm moving the seeds and plants around as I'm digging snow off the sidewalk. This next to it is a big swath of creeping thyme. You can see it's blooming. It holds up pretty well. The springtime it looks pretty terrible because it's been buried under leaves and snow all winter, and it's all mostly brown and mucky, and I always wonder, is it going to live? Is it going to live? And it always does. And then in between that, you can kind of see that's pussy toes. It's a perennial prairie flower, and it also blooms in spring. It gets tall little white catkins on it, I guess you could call them, that look like little kitty feet. Very fun. And it's a host plant for painted lady butterflies. Then here's more blue stem. This is hoary vervain, which migrated from the bed back behind me, which I'll swivel around, you can see in a minute. This next to it is an aster that we planted this year, and I don't know remember what kind it is. Big-leaved aster, heart-leaved aster, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. More grasses, and radibita, which has migrated across from the sidewalk from across the bed there. Now behind me is where the hoary vervain came from, and there's really almost none in this bed anymore. I guess it didn't like it there. Right here is wild bergamot, which is in the bee balm family. It is such a wonderful, wonderful plant. It smells so good, and the bees love it. As you can see, bees flying around. That is big blue stem, more radibita that migrated. That thing in there is alpine aster, which I love and hate. It gets beautiful little dark mauvey purpley flowers on it in the fall, but it just spreads like crazy, and it's invaded the whole bed, and it spreads underground by rhizomes, and I'm always ripping it out, and it's always spreading even more. I'm sad to see this year that the rattlesnake master, which also was growing in here, didn't seem to make it back, which makes me sad. I loved that plant. I'll have to get another one. And you can see here's the hoary vervain in the original bed, and this little bit here is all that's left. A little coneflower that has made its way from across the sidewalk. And here's a look down my sidewalk, if you can see. There's to the right There's to the left. So this street here, Minneapolis encourages you to garden in this strip between the street and the sidewalk. It's frequently called a hellstrip because the dirt, the soil in this bed is so awful. It gets piled on with snow from the street when the plows come by, and piled on with snow from the sidewalk, and it just ends up getting salt and de-icer and all kinds of other crud in it. So it's really, really hard to grow stuff in there, but there are some hardy things. Like here we've got lots of purple coneflowers, and Radabita, as you can see, are very happy here, which the bees appreciate. You can see all the different bees flying around in there. Also have some liatris about to bloom in there. Already past its bloom, which is also in there, is some butterfly weed, which blooms earlier in the summer. And then looks like this is some New England aster that made its way all the way down here. Then across to the next bed we've got creeping sedum. I can't remember the exact variety, but it gets pretty yellow flowers in the spring. These are Mexican hat. You can see it kind of looks like a tall sombrero with the middle sticking out. And we've got more coneflowers, more hoary vervain. This is another aster we planted this year. I don't remember the variety. Should have looked it up before it came out. And what else? There's a sedum in there, which is just starting to bloom. And we have a goldenrod that I just planted in here in the spring over in this area, which is currently being inundated with Mexican hat, but hopefully it'll be blooming. That's a fall bloomer, so that should be pretty. And as you can see, more Radabita has sprung up over here. Across the way is, this bed is mostly, looks nicest in the spring, with geranium and blanket flower and some bee balm and baptista. But it ends up looking kind of ratty at the end of the season. Got to figure out what to do about that. Here's the heads of the blanket flower. They make a nice, attractive after flower. This growing here is, well, there's sedum underneath, but that is a mum. Minnesota mum is the variety, and it's a deep burgundy. Sometimes it decides to bloom, sometimes it doesn't. I think I got 3 flowers on it last year. Who knows what'll happen this year. More passiflower. These were planted on purpose. There is some liatris blooming right now, which is always pretty. Some blue stem. And in there is blue fescue. It's a little bunch grass. And then there's some more pussy toes. Those are prairie violets. There's a white coneflower and the leaves from a really beautiful iris, sunset, I think it's called. It's a bearded iris, and when it blooms in the late spring, it's orange and kind of yellowy, orangey, like a sunset. So there we have my front area. There's some areas on the hellstrip that we haven't planted yet, which we're going to be working on as time goes on. Hopefully next year we'll start getting those planted. I'm starting to get some ideas of what to do there. But there you go.